So most of us are aware that the history of Issaquah was strongly impacted by trains, but it was also impacted later by cars. The first car that came to Issaquah was shipped here by rail in 1911 and assembled here. And it was one of very few cars at that time. Not too many people could afford a car, and the horse was still the usual mode of transportation. One of the first families to own an automobile was the Tibbets family. George Washington Tibbets was a member of state legislature and a very prominent businessman here in Issaquah, so he could afford a car. He was also very attached to automobiles for ideological reasons. He, as a member of state legislature, drafted the bill to create the Snoqualmie Pass Highway and pushed it through state legislature, and this resulted in the opening of the highway in 1915. So as the car began to be a more popular mass transit option, people needed the railroad less. You could travel from Issaquah into downtown Seattle in an hour and 10 minutes, and there were 3 round trips a day. The train, on the other hand, took about 2 hours. So it became more and more popular just to take the stage, and by 1922 we no longer had passenger service by rail here in Issaquah. So previously the only way to get to Seattle was by train. Now you had a couple different stage services. One advertised itself as the shortest route from Seattle via the new Issaquah ferry, and the stage ran from Issaquah, and it took people to Newport, where they got on a ferry and they went across the lake and landed at Leschi, and then they could take a streetcar into downtown Seattle. The automobile also became a popular option to transport freight. The Issaquah Seattle Freight Company founded in the 1910s, and that became a way for large freight to be transported other than via the railroad. One of the Issaquah town marshals, Ray Robertson, was the first to convince the police force that they needed to have a police car. So the first city police car was a Ford, and he bragged that it would do 87 miles an hour. So this is another area where the car became more popular. So, and throughout the 1920s and 1930s, more and more people were buying automobiles. And because of that, roads began to improve, and the state began to think of ways to get people moving from place to place. And in 1940, the first bridge over Lake Washington opened. It was called the Lake Washington Bridge, and it's now the path that Interstate 90 travels on. And this bridge made a huge difference, because now, in order for people to get from Seattle over to the east side, they didn't have to drive all the way around the lake. They could take the bridge over. So it probably only took them about a half an hour to get from Seattle to what is now Issaquah, and this was a huge improvement over what it had taken before. So along with the bridge came a highway known as Highway 10. And this highway passed right through the center of Issaquah. So this was not a great thing for the dairy farmers, because this highway cut through a number of family farms. The Bergsma farm, the Pickering farm, and the Barlow farm were all impacted. But it did have an impact on some other people who were able to open businesses that ran along this new highway. Among them were the family that operated Bert's Hamburger Station. This was a place where travelers could stop off and buy a hamburger while they were on the road. It also gave rise to Boehm's Chocolates, which was right on Highway 10, another great place for people to stop off on their trip. And the Hovar Motel and a couple other motels were located right on Highway 10 for the convenience of the traveler. Most Issaquah residents had grown up with the railroad as a backdrop to their lives. In the early 1970s, Interstate 90 came through, and in order for this freeway to be built, the Issaquah trestle was taken down. And with that went one of the last reminders of Issaquah's early days as a railroad town. If you've enjoyed these photographs, you might be interested to know that they're all featured in our latest publication, Images of America, Issaquah, Washington. That book's available for sale at our gift shops. If you're interested in that or in learning more about the history of Issaquah and our museums, please come visit us. The Gilman Town Hall is open Thursday, Friday, and Saturday from 11 till 3, and the Depot Museum is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11 till 3. Thanks a lot.